The day Aaron found the burner phone, the rain hadn't stopped for hours. It hissed against the windows of the house on Maple Street, the kind of steady downpour that made the world feel smaller, blurred at the edges. She had been looking for the spare car key in Ryan's desk drawer when her hand grazed the slim device, tucked inside a folded t-shirt at the back. No password, no wallpaper. Just a flood of messages, each more damning than the last. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? I miss you. Does she suspect anything? Aaron put the phone down gently as if afraid it might detonate. Her mind clattered with half-formed thoughts, none of them coherent. She had always imagined, foolishly maybe, that betrayal would feel like a knife to the gut. Sudden, unmistakable. But standing there in their shared home, her knees trembling, she felt hollow, as if something vital had been scooped out of her, and she was too numb to notice what was missing. In the kitchen, Ryan hummed as he unloaded groceries. Ordinary, benign. For the next 3 days, Aaron said nothing. She moved through the motions of their life. Breakfast, work, dinner, all while studying him as if he were a stranger, noting every unguarded laugh, every quick glance at his phone. She wasn't ready. Not yet. She needed more. Proof he couldn't squirm away from Ryan. Didn't think of himself as a liar, not really. When he and Marissa had first crossed that line, a colleague, a friendship that became a flame, he told himself it was harmless. A spark in a life that had grown stale. He loved Aaron. He loved their life, their history. But love and betrayal, he was learning, could coexist. He hated the sneaking, the compartmentalizing, but part of him thrilled at it too, the way it made everything sharper, more vivid. At home, Aaron had grown distant lately, always tired, always distracted. He told himself she barely noticed him anymore. It was a story he needed to believe. The detective agency had a polished front office, more sterile than Aaron had expected. The receptionist smiled blandly, taking her retainer with professional indifference. Within 24 hours, she had a packet in her hands. Photos, hotel receipts. One grainy shot of Ryan's hand brushing Marissa's lower back as they exited. A restaurant, a ring still glinting on his finger. Aaron cried then, finally. Not out of heartbreak, but rage. The confrontation was quieter than either of them expected. Ryan walked in to find Aaron sitting at the kitchen table, the burner phone and the photos neatly arranged between them like evidence at a trial. You left. Me no choice, she said simply. He sat. He didn't deny it. For a long moment, the only sound was the patter of rain on the roof. I ended it, Ryan said. His voice was rough. A month ago. I swear. Did you ever love me? Aaron asked. The question landed like a slap. Ryan opened his mouth, but nothing came. Out. What answer could possibly matter now? In the weeks that followed, they existed like roommates stranded by a storm. Some nights Aaron watched him sleep on the couch, wondering if she hated him more for the betrayal or for the part of herself that still wanted him to come back to bed. Friends picked sides quietly, offering cold comfort or indignation. Aaron's sister urged her to lawyer up. Ryan's brother insisted, people make mistakes. Marissa, meanwhile, had filed a harassment complaint at work. Ryan hadn't taken the hint to leave quietly. Now, Aaron learned, there might be an internal investigation. Her anger twisted at that, the public mess of it all. One night, after too many glasses of wine, Aaron scrolled through Ryan's texts. No new messages from Marissa. Just a long, pathetic draft he hadn't sent, full of apologies and admissions. She could destroy him if she wanted to. Forward the burner phone texts to HR. Send the photos to his boss, expose him, humiliate him. Instead, she powered the phone off. The final conversation wasn't grand. I'm not sure what comes next, Ryan said, standing in the doorway with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. But I'll do whatever it takes, if there's still a chance. Erin looked at him, really looked, at the man she had loved and the man who had betrayed her. Both faces fused together now, inseparable. "You don't get to ask that," she said, her voice steady. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." He nodded. There was nothing else to say. The door clicked softly behind him. Erin stood there for a long time, listening to the silence, feeling the cracks spiderweb through the life they had built. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. For the first time in weeks, she opened the windows wide, breathing in the damp, uncertain air. The neighborhood smelled like wet asphalt and honeysuckle. Somewhere, a dog barked and a car engine turned over, loud in the quiet street. Erin sat back down at the kitchen table. The burner phone still lay there, inert and accusing. Her fingers hovered over it for a long time before she finally shoved it into a drawer. Out of sight, but not out of mind. The problem was, once you saw the cracks, you could never unsee them. She picked up her real phone. A missed call from Maggie, her oldest friend, and Ryan's co-worker. Erin had ignored it earlier, but now, fueled by loneliness and spite, she tapped, "Call back." Maggie picked up immediately. "Erin, thank God, I've been so worried." Erin didn't say anything, just waited. There was a pause. Then Maggie plunged forward. "You should know. Ryan isn't the only one. Marissa, she's slept her way up before. She's done this to other guys at the firm. HR's covering their asses. They're trying to make Ryan the scapegoat." Erin closed her eyes. "Why are you telling me this? Because I'm your friend. Because you deserve to know the full story." A bitter laugh escaped Erin's throat. "The full story," she repeated, as if such a thing existed anymore. "I can send you the emails," Maggie said, voice low, "if you want." Part of Erin screamed to hang up, to sever the last thread tying her to the wreckage, but a colder, sharper part, the part that had ordered the private investigator, that had survived, leaned in. "Send them." The emails arrived that night, screenshots of late-night messages between Marissa and other senior partners, explicit, transactional, promises, flirtations. Ryan wasn't innocent, but he wasn't the only villain, either. That small, crucial difference lodged itself like a splinter under Erin's skin. A week passed. Ryan texted once. "Hope you're okay. I'm not pushing, just thinking about you." Erin didn't respond. Instead, she met Maggie for coffee. Neutral ground, a sterile Starbucks between their houses, the smell of burnt beans and disinfectant hanging in the air. "You don't have to protect him," Erin said, after Maggie awkwardly fumbled through pleasantries. "I'm not," Maggie said quickly. "Look, I'm not saying forgive him, I'm saying don't let her win." "Win?" Erin asked sharply. "This isn't a game." Maggie flushed. "I just mean, don't let this destroy you. You're better than that." Erin stirred her coffee, watching the cream bloom into the dark. "Better," she repeated softly. She wondered if that was even true. The next day, a manila envelope arrived in Erin's mailbox. No return address. Inside were copies of Marissa's emails, photos, and, stunningly, a printed-out thread from an anonymous forum where Marissa bragged about seducing her way into promotions. The implication was clear. Someone wanted Erin to use this. She sat at the kitchen table again, staring at the papers. In the drawer, the burner phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. An old one Ryan must have set. Anniversary dinner. 7 p.m. Villa Leone. Erin stared at the notification until her vision blurred. At 7 p.m., Erin walked into Villa Leone alone. She wore a simple black dress and carried a slim folder in her purse. The maitre d' looked at her with polite confusion, but she waved him off, scanning the room. Ryan sat at a table near the back, nursing a glass of whiskey, eyes flicking toward the door with every chime of the entrance bell. When he saw her, something, like relief, or maybe dread, crossed his face. He stood. "You came." She sat, slowly. They regarded each other like diplomats at a ceasefire table. "I have something for you," Aaron said. Ryan's gaze dropped to her purse. He opened his mouth to apologize, to beg. She wasn't sure. But she cut him off. "I could ruin you," she said quietly. "Completely." He swallowed hard, his hands flat on the table. "But I won't," she said. "Not because you deserve mercy. You don't. But because I'm tired." A long silence stretched between them. The waiter approached, then wisely retreated. "I still love you," Ryan said, barely above a whisper. Aaron felt the words hit her, a soft body blow. She thought maybe a part of her would always love him too. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. "You don't know how to love," she said, her voice flat. Not in a way that matters. She slid the folder across the table. Inside, the burner phone, the emails, the photos. Evidence, yes, but also, maybe, closure. "Do what you want with it," she said. And then, before he could answer, before she could second-guess herself, Aaron stood and walked out into the cool night air. The sky was clearing. A few tentative stars blinked above the city. Aaron didn't know where she was going next, only that it would be forward, alone maybe, but not broken. Epilogue. 6 months later. The house on Maple Street was sold within 2 months. Aaron left most of the furniture behind, packing only what fit into a storage unit and 2 battered suitcases. She rented a small loft downtown, high ceilings. Too much glass. But she liked the anonymity of it. No history clinging to the walls. Some nights, she still woke up reaching for Ryan, heart hammering. Muscle memory. It faded a little more each time. Ryan had resigned from his firm. Quietly, with no lawsuit, no public scandal. Maggie hinted that Marissa had been quietly transferred to another branch. No one talked about it much. He texted sometimes, short messages. "Thinking of you? Hope you're doing okay." Aaron never answered. After a while, he stopped trying. In November, Aaron started attending a writer's group at a bookstore a few blocks from her loft. It was mostly retirees and lonely college kids. She didn't tell them about her old life. Instead, she wrote short, sharp pieces about women setting fires and walking away from them without looking back. One night after the meeting, a man named Daniel, quiet, kind-eyed, divorced, asked if she wanted to grab coffee. She hesitated. "I'm not looking for anything serious," she said bluntly, surprising herself. He smiled in a way that didn't feel like pressure. "Neither am I." They talked until midnight, about books, about favorite cities, about nothing important. Aaron went home alone. But she didn't feel lonely. It wasn't a beginning. Not yet. Maybe just the possibility of one. One rainy evening in December, Aaron found the old burner phone again, buried under a pile of receipts in her desk drawer. On impulse, she powered it up. There was a single unsent draft message to her, written by Ryan. "I know I can never undo what I did, but if there's a version of this life where you're happy, even if it's without me, I'll take it. I'm sorry. I love you. Goodbye." Aaron stared at the screen for a long time. Her heart ached, but not with longing or regret, only with the deep, complicated grief of someone who had survived the fire and who knew. Survival wasn't the same thing as healing. She deleted the message, then she powered the phone off for good and dropped it into the trash. Tomorrow, she would paint. The loft a new color. Maybe blue, maybe something wild. Tomorrow, the world would be wide open again. Meanwhile, Ryan moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the highway, the kind of place that always smelled faintly of fried food and bleach no matter how many candles he lit. He kept busy at first, Gym, job hunting, therapy, half-heartedly. The why. Corporate world was smaller than he realized. Every interview felt like walking into a room already tainted by rumor. He picked up freelance consulting work, enough to keep the lights on, but not enough to silence the gnawing feeling in his gut. He hadn't heard from Erin in months. Sometimes he drafted long emails to her at night, explanations, apologies, promises. But he never sent them. Words felt cheap now. He knew better than to think a few paragraphs could fix what he'd broken. Instead, he wrote them for himself. Tiny monuments to the man he was trying, too late, to become. One evening in January, Ryan passed Villa Leone on his way home. Without thinking, he pulled into the parking lot and sat there for a while, engine idling, watching couples drift in under the golden lights. At their old table, the one where Erin had handed him the folder, a young couple laughed over a bottle of wine, leaning close, oblivious to the cold world outside. Ryan sat back in the driver's seat, staring at them through the rain-specked windshield. He wondered what Erin was doing now, if she had found someone, if she woke up lighter, freer, without the weight of him dragging her down. He hoped so. He really did. When the rain thickened into a downpour, Ryan finally turned the engine off and stepped out into the storm. He let it soak him, shivering, blinking up at the black sky. He walked home that night. No shortcuts, no running. Final note, neither of them would ever be the people they were before. Maybe that was the cost of betrayal, not just the loss of each other, but the loss of who they had been when they still believed in each other, and maybe in some battered, painful way, they were still learning how to live with that. 1 year later, the bookstore hadn't changed. Erin pushed open the heavy glass door, brushing a few raindrops from her coat. The familiar smell of old paper and brewing coffee wrapped around her like a worn blanket. She hadn't meant to come here, today. She had just been walking, killing time between errands, when her feet pulled her toward the place out of habit. The Wednesday writing group sat clustered in the back, faces both familiar and new. Erin spotted Daniel smiling as he jotted notes in a battered notebook. She smiled back, small and genuine. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon, until she turned the corner and saw him, Ryan. He stood by the poetry shelf, flipping through. A slim paperback, hair a little longer, a new scar just visible along his jaw. He looked different. Thinner. Older. But still unmistakably him. For a moment, the world narrowed to a pinpoint. Ryan glanced up and froze. Their eyes locked across the aisle. Neither of them moved. The air between them buzzed with 1,000 things unsaid: anger, regret, tenderness, pain. For a heartbeat, Erin imagined walking past him like a stranger. She imagined saying nothing, leaving him to the weight of the life he had built without her. But she didn't. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she crossed the aisle. "Hey," she said, voice low and even. Ryan's mouth tugged into a sad, almost invisible smile. "Hey." Up close, she saw how tired his eyes were. Or maybe she was just seeing clearly for the first time. They stood there, awkward. Two people who had once shared everything and now shared only silence. "How are you?" Ryan asked finally, as if it mattered. As if the answer wasn't already written, all over her. "I'm good," Erin said. And she realized with a jolt that it was mostly true. Ryan nodded. He didn't offer any updates about himself. He didn't apologize again. Maybe he understood there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been carved into the space between them. There was a long, aching pause. "Take care, Erin," Ryan said, voice rough. "You too," she whispered. She watched him walk out into the rain without looking back. Erin turned away, heart pounding strangely, not with grief or anger, but with something quieter. Sadness, gratitude, relief. She tucked a stray hair behind her ear and made her way toward the writing group. Daniel caught her eye and waved her over. saving her a seat. Erin smiled. She didn't look back at the door. Closing lines outside, the city thrummed with life, messy and unpredictable. Not everything broken could be mended, but some things, the most important things, could be survived. And sometimes, survival was its own kind of victory. Ryan. After the bookstore. The rain felt colder than he remembered. Ryan shoved his hands deep into his jacket pockets and kept walking, head down, boots splashing through shallow puddles. He hadn't expected to see her, hadn't even let himself imagine it. There had been a moment, one electric, agonizing moment, where he thought maybe she would say something else. Maybe she would offer some thread to pull him back into her orbit. But she hadn't, and he hadn't deserved. Ryan crossed the street without looking, headlights flashing past, indifferent. He tried to tell himself this was a kind of grace. That seeing her standing there, strong, steady, breathing, was a gift he hadn't earned but had been given anyway. He tried to believe that letting her go was the right thing. Rain dripped from his eyelashes as he kept moving forward into a city that didn't know him, into a life that was still his to repair. Somehow. Final feeling in another world. Maybe they would have made it. But this wasn't that world. This was the real one. Messy, broken, beautiful in spite of it all. The rain drummed lightly against the loft windows, soft and persistent. Erin sat curled on the old velvet chair she had found at a flea market last month, a book open but forgotten in her lap. A cup of cold tea sat on the windowsill beside her, untouched. She watched the city move outside, taxis splashing through puddles, umbrellas blooming and collapsing on the sidewalks. Somewhere out there, Ryan was moving through the same storm. She wondered briefly if he had looked back after leaving the bookstore. If he had expected her to call out to him. If he had hoped. The thought stirred something inside her. Not pain exactly. Not regret. A different ache. Something more complicated. She would always carry the old life with her. There was no undoing it. No cutting it out cleanly. But she had learned slowly and stubbornly that carrying it didn't mean being trapped. By it, Erin closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of rain and old paper. She pictured a wide road stretching forward into mist. Unfamiliar, a little frightening, but hers, entirely hers. When she opened her eyes again, the book had slipped from her lap to the floor. She left it there. She let the tea grow colder. She watched the night unfold around her and let it. Last line, the future wasn't a prize or a punishment. It was just what came next, and she was ready for it. Since we've now emotionally closed both Erin's and Ryan's arcs in a quiet, powerful way, the most natural continuation is to open the world a little wider. A glimpse into their futures, hinted but not spelled out. Still keeping it emotionally grounded, realistic, and a little mysterious, just like you wanted. Now I'll give you short, final, shadow scenes. Mini moments showing how both Erin and Ryan move forward separately, each carrying what happened, but not defined by it. This is subtle, layered, the way real healing feels. A future for Erin months later, Erin sat at a small table outside a coffee shop, a soft spring breeze teasing the pages of her notebook. Across from her, Daniel smiled over the rim of his coffee cup, telling a story about his terrible high school band. Erin laughed, real, bright, the sound surprising even herself. The key. Laughter faded, and for a second Daniel looked at her differently. A question in his eyes, he didn't speak aloud. Erin smiled gently and returned to her notebook. She wasn't ready yet. Maybe she never would be. But she was here. Present. Open in ways she hadn't been before. That was enough. For now. A future for. Ryan in a different part of the city. Ryan moved into a modest duplex with a tiny backyard. On Saturdays, he built things: shelves, planters, a crooked picnic table he never bothered to fix. His hands were always nicked and splintered. He started volunteering at a neighborhood legal clinic. Part-time, no spotlight, no six-figure salary. He liked it better this way. He dated once or twice, nothing serious. He wasn't ready to be anyone's husband again. Maybe he never would be. Sometimes he thought about Erin, her laugh, the way she used to curl her hands around a coffee mug to warm them. He hoped she was happy. He had no right to know. But he hoped anyway. Final Echo 2 lives. Two paths, bent, but not broken. Not a perfect ending. Not a fairy tale, just survival. Just the messy, aching business of being human. And sometimes, that was enough. Since we've naturally closed their futures with those soft, reflective scenes, the next deepening step is to add one final emotional thread, something unspoken but powerful. I'll write you a bonus scene where Erin writes a letter she never sends to Ryan, a letter that's not about rekindling anything, but about forgiveness, understanding, and letting go. Something true to her growth, honest, painful, but freeing. Here it is, unsent letter. Erin to Ryan. She wrote it one evening, without planning to. It was late, the city humming outside her windows, a pen balanced between her fingers. For a long time, she just stared at the blank page. Then, slowly, she began. Ryan, there are things I wish I could say to you in person, but maybe it's better this way. I don't hate you. Not anymore. Hate is heavy, and I don't want to carry it with me. You hurt me in ways you probably don't even fully understand. You took something from me, from us, that can't ever be replaced. And for a long time, I thought healing meant punishing you, or forgetting you, or pretending. None of it ever mattered. I know better now. You mattered, we mattered. And even though you broke it, it was real while it lasted. I hope you find peace, Ryan. I hope you build something good with whatever pieces you have left. I'm still building too. Not a new life exactly, just a truer version of myself. 1 day at a time. Be well. Erin. She set the pen down, staring at the words. She thought for a moment about mailing it, about giving him that last piece of herself. Instead, she folded the letter carefully and tucked it into the back of an old notebook, a keepsake, not a bridge. She didn't need Ryan to read it. She had already said it to herself, and that was enough. Final closing line. Sometimes the hardest thing wasn't saying goodbye. It was living the goodbye every day, and still choosing to move forward anyway. Since we've fully wrapped Erin's healing journey now, the most natural thing to do next is to offer a final silent echo from Ryan. His own unsent letter. It won't mirror Erin's exactly. Ryan's letter will be rougher, less polished, because that fits who he is. A man who still struggles with guilt, who can't quite find the right words, but tries anyway. It'll be short, raw, and leave a deep emotional mark, exactly fitting the tone we've been building. Here's the next part. Unsent. Letter. Ryan to Erin. Ryan didn't write it right away. It came months after that afternoon at the bookstore. In the middle of a night when the rain wouldn't let up, and his mind wouldn't either. He sat at the scarred kitchen table, an old legal pad in front of him, and started writing without thinking. Erin, I don't know if this is for you or for me. I spent a long time telling myself stories about who I was, about who we were. And I think lying to myself was the first betrayal. Even before I lied to you, there are 100 things I could say, explanations, reasons, excuses, but none of them matter. I was careless with something that deserved reverence. I didn't just lose you. I lost the man I thought I was. I'm trying to be better now, not because I think it fixes anything, because it doesn't, but because maybe it's the only apology that means anything. I hope the life you're building is beautiful. You deserve that. I'm rooting for you. Always. Ryan, he stared at the page for a long time. Then he folded it once, tucked it into a drawer, and left it there, a small, private act of penance. A way of saying sorry that wasn't about being heard, only about being true. Final dual echo 2 letters. 2 people. Neither mailed, neither needed. Forgiveness wasn't a conversation between them anymore. It was something each of them had to find alone. And somehow, they did. Ultimate closing line. Sometimes survival wasn't about fighting. It was about putting down the weapons, even the ones you carried inside yourself, and choosing quietly to live. Now the emotional architecture is completely built. 2 betrayals, 2 survivals, 2 paths forward, a love that mattered, but wasn't enough. Forgiveness not given to each other but for themselves.